This is episode 124 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Bill Faeth. Bill is an Airbnb coach, an 8-figure business builder who founded the STR Wealth Conference and the Build STR Wealth Mastermind and Facebook group. He's coached 20,000 or so students through this program. He also has 2 podcasts, one with our previous guest, Kenny Bedwell, STRonomics, and also STR Unfiltered. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan. I'm stoked to be here today.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you and get your wealth of experience, especially at a time when we just went through a year of people saying STR was dead. What do you say to that? We all now know it's crazy that they said it, but why were they saying it?
I wish they would keep singing that from the rooftops. I mean, I added a couple of properties to my portfolio that I own. I did another podcast this morning, actually for my podcast.
Yeah.
And, the guy was showing a bunch of trends of how many people are going to enter the market potentially in the next 6 to 12 months based on real estate or on interest rate drops.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I like it at 8% better than I do at 6. There's less competition for myself. And if I can underwrite at 8%, even though I never paid 8%, I think 7.6 was the highest interest rate I paid. If I can underwrite it, I get a faster ability to be able to potentially reposition, HELOC, cash out refi, or just exit completely out of a property and redisperse my capital. So I'm a big fan of buying in the slower times, the downturns, when there's higher interest rates, and I am kind of the free-for-all that we had during COVID. Now, I made a lot of money, hopefully most people during COVID. Flipping, my wife had never flipped before. We took advantage of specifically one market, but also building the short-term rental portfolio as well.
I think it goes back to what you said. Whenever somebody goes against the herd, people often think, oh, they're trying something new. It's like, well, no, everyone's getting scared because they're listening to kind of like rhetoric that's out there. And that's what I feel like was happening. I'm the same as you. The second that I see a lot of people exit a space, I'm at least going to look at it because there's less competition in it. Why would I go to the place where all the competition is? How have you seen short-term rentals develop over these years? Because someone like me, I was doing short-term rentals 20 years ago as an owner and operator when it was like on HomeAway and Vrbo. It was very steady, but it really, like when Airbnb came and everything changed and now everybody wants to invest in them, it's kind of a different dynamic. The people who know it best, like yourself, are able to easily navigate. But I can see people getting in thinking it's going to be a lot easier than it is.
Yeah, it's a lot different than my first duplex. I think I paid $103,000 for in 1993.
Yeah.
The business is no different for me today than it was in the short-term rentals when I started in 2015. Because I built all of my businesses based on doing something unique, different, and escalating to the highest price point. I believe in price elasticity. I believe in the Louis Vuitton model. I don't think there's anything at Louis Vuitton that's made any better than Gucci. And I don't think there's anything made at Gucci that would be a notch down that's any better than Nike shoes or, whatever decent clothing company, Brooks Brothers or whatever. It's branding, it's marketing, and it's price elasticity. So one of the things that I do, I think early on people didn't do, it was set it and forget it with, it's $500 a night. It's $200 a night. And I'm not even talking about dynamic pricing. There's a difference between dynamic pricing and pricing elasticity. And I was really able to accentuate that during COVID based on the demand. Luckily, I was in southern markets at that time, beach markets where COVID didn't really exist, maybe 30 days of shutdown in the Panhandle and in Florida and stuff like that. And I was able to leverage that pricing elasticity. I was raising my rates like 5 to 10% a week. I'd get 1 or 2 bookings. I'm raising them another 10%, another 10%. And I think people saw that, not just me, but they saw other people learning how to do that and doing that in the industry. And like, holy smokes, I can do 15x long-term rent. Yeah, you can in the short term.
Yeah, right.
But you better have an exit strategy on the back end of when things slow down. And I'm like, well, I don't want to have 100 of these. Can I get 5 or 6 or 10 and make some massive money and not have to have 50 or 100, which is really even what most people try to do today. So once again, I've gone against the grain, and my goal is to have the least amount of properties, not
Yeah.
the most amount.
Yeah, I that resonates with me, and it's something that we've talked a lot about on the podcast because somebody with 100 doors that makes $100 for each door, I'd much rather have a 10 doors that make, 1,000. It's just easier from a management perspective. So your focus has been going higher with the amenities, higher with the properties to generate more income off one property instead of making these multiple streams off of more management that you have to
I
do.
would say that's the why before the why. That's really the byproduct of architecting my life of
Yeah,
what I wanted in the outcome. If I would have done this prior to 2015, it just aligned with John Bairden, who was a mentor and a good friend of mine, who was about probably 20 years older than me, helped me re-architect my life along with about 7 other guys that were
yeah,
all business owners. And what I learned is that that's where I just got rid of the separation of church and state and work-life balance,
yeah,
and all had to meld together. And when I figured that out, then I kind of developed this thing. This isn't a sales pitch. I don't sell this,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it's my own planner. And one of the things that's helped me is if you notice, and this is just a Sunday, well, I get it over here, a
There you go in
Sunday.
front of the mic. Yeah,
One of the
perfect.
big things is start and stop time. So I learned to track my time. I learned to focus on priorities, not tasks. But most importantly, I had defined what I wanted, Jonathan, on the very end.
Yeah,
Me and my wife sat down. We know what date we wanted to retire. We know how much money we wanted to have, how much income, and most importantly, how we wanted to live our lives. So what
yeah,
happened is we bought our first beach property, which is what my wife wanted. And we were having lunch with friends of ours at 30A at the pizza place down there.
yeah,
And she's like, "Hey, we need to buy a beach house. But here's my conditions. I want to hear the ocean. I want to see it. I want to smell it." I'm like, "Well, fuck, we can't afford to buy here." In Seaside. And this was like
yeah,
10 years ago. Hey, you know what? We might have a thing here. We had a hand painted mural before murals were the things, right? We did a golf cart and paddle boards and kayaks before anybody was doing that stuff.
yeah.
I shouldn't say anybody. That was the go to in 30A, right? But
Right,
it
right.
wasn't happening
That
in
market though was always a short-term rental market. Like
100%.
people think these things. I used to go to Sanibel Island every year as a kid. We were staying in what at the time were modified timeshares, but really short-term rentals. It's the same thing. Like people who didn't go to Florida just don't understand. Like this existed. Like you're saying, it was there.
But it didn't at that level didn't exist in Gulf
Yeah,
Wars. And it
yeah,
sure
yeah,
as hell didn't exist in Fort Morgan where I started, right? So that was kind of the emphasis. People, "Bill, why are you invested into Western North Carolina? How come you're not in the Smokies?" For the exact same reason William Wilson sent me to Gulf Shores.
yeah,
And I even bypassed Orange Beach, bypassed Gulf Shores, and I started in Fort Morgan. That's why I'm in Banner Elk versus being in Wares Valley making no money,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
So those are the same premises, the same things that I did in my Bell Aqua bikinis, drop shipping business in the early 90s, Wild Bill's Texas Smokehouse, my restaurants, my Glow Golf business. Every single principle I have inside of my investing strategy today was born out of my grandfather and Reginald Booth, my Glow Golf partner, who was the second franchisee into Pizza Hut in 1968. And they're tried, tested, and true business principles, right? That's
yeah,
it. Most people don't apply standardized business principles to their investing strategy. And if you do that, you mitigate your risk on the front end, you maximize cash flow in the middle, and you increase the variability of your exit and a higher potential to redeploy cash or take profits, whatever you want to do. It's pretty simple.